I was making excuses for what was going on at the job and what was making me unhappy. At the beginning, it was a lot of, oh, well, maybe it's the boss, because that's a normal thing. Everybody, gripes about their boss or whatever. And then I was like, okay, well, maybe it's my coworkers. Oh, maybe it's the coworkers that I don't like to work with, or maybe that's what's making it bad. And then I went on into well, maybe the work vacation balance isn't enough. Maybe I feel like I'm working too much, not getting enough time off. So I went through all those different stages. And it wasn't until I really, I was kind of fed up with myself, being a real sad sack and not being who I know that I can be. And it wasn't until that point that I decided, hey, it's time for me to sit down with myself and kind of have a little conversation with myself and go, what is really going on? Because this job that you're at hasn't changed any. The people there haven't changed any. It's the same thing. Why are you now unhappy? Whereas before you were feeling good about it. And it finally came to me. It wasn't about my boss. It wasn't about my coworkers. It wasn't about the time off or the time on. It was because I was unsatisfied with where I was at in life. I was not fulfilling my life the way that I thought that I should. I was doing less than what I thought that I should. So what that did was it manifested in a lot of different emotions, because I think the hardest thing for, us to do as human beings is to actually maybe blame ourselves for something. A lot of times what we do is we push the blame off on somebody else, and we're like, well, it ain't me. It's got to be them. A lot of times it's us. It's us not fulfilling what we think that we should fulfill, and we're not meeting the standard that we have in our own brain. And deep down, subconsciously, that just builds up on you for a long time. So, so towards the end of me working there, I started thinking, how am I going to make this situation better for me? How am I going to get this to where it's what I like in life, it feels fulfilling. So at that time, I wished I could have just cut it off and gone, hey, I'm moving on, but it's not like that. And we're going to kind of outline towards the end of the show different techniques that you can use in order to, start doing the things that you want to do. But I'm going to outline one of them in the thing that I did at the beginning. So when I finally decided, hey, I want to go do my own thing, I want to work somewhere else, I couldn't leave at that time. So I was stuck. So you have two choices. You can be still a sad sack and walk around and feel sorry for yourself or whatever that is, or blame people, whatever it is that you want to do. Or you can use the time that you have. And at that time, you don't know how much time it is. It could be 6 months. It could be a year. You really don't know. So you got to have faith in yourself, and you got to formulate a plan and go, hey, this is where I want to go. Don't know when it's going to be, but at some point we're going to get there, and we're going to utilize the time that we have until we get there. So I made a conscious decision to go, hey, let's quit moping around and let's get better during this duration before you move on to the next thing. And what that does is it allows you to crisp up who you are and what you want to be. That way, when you finally get there, you're able to make the most out of it as quickly as possible.
Absolutely, man. And I think the plan aspect with what you shared with your story was the most important part to it in that transition. And I can relate to a couple stories. So there's an experience I had during college baseball, and going back to those times, my freshman year, had high expectations going into the season, had playing at a pretty competitive club. And I remember towards the end of the year, there was really no way I was going to be getting in the lineup. It just season was going downhill, just kind of clashed with the coach a little bit. My ritual was always to give my dad a call after batting practice. I always did that just to check in with him. It always just kind of calmed me down. And I remember towards the end of the season, he would always say, or he'd always ask me, did you win batting practice today? And one day I was like, Dad, why do you keep asking me if I won batting practice? And he said, because you need to be prepared for your next move. And you never know what you're doing right now and how that could affect your future and where you go. And so the rest is history. I did my best to make myself better, even though I wasn't exactly where I wanted to be at that school. And that transitioned to a good transition the next year later. And that my father instilled that value in me to, even though you're not where exactly you want to be, you find out what it takes to get to where you want to be, and you work on that. You work on yourself.